I want to thank you all for this prize. It's an amazing list of people that you've recognized, and I'm so honored to be part of this community of writers that the Veillon Prize has selected. It's for me a particular pleasure because the one thing that has tied my life together has been writing, and the craft that I have, the discipline I have, is about writing rather than an academic subject, academic discipline. My discipline is the discipline of words. So I'm extremely grateful to you to recognize what I have tried in all my life to make work, which is the essay. I'd like to speak to you just briefly about what I understand an essay to be. I don't want to talk to you, politics hard to avoid, but I'd like to avoid it if I may. Basically, to me, an essay is a conversation rather than a demonstration. It's a conversation in words with the reader, rather than showing to the reader something to believe, to follow. And from that, I think follow certain principles of how an essay is best written. To preface this, I have to, maybe I recall one thing from my own youth, which was a conversation with the wonderful essayist Roland Barthes, who died before your prize began, or just after your prize began, who was a great friend and influence on me. And I remember sitting with him in a terrible cafe in Paris, surrounded by pinballs and popular music, horrible, noise everywhere. And he's saying to me, I have cast off a great burden. I am no longer writing from the discipline of structuralism. I am just writing. And that word burden, that this was a burden on his writing, was very striking to me. And all my life, I've been wondering how also to cast off that burden of writing an academic discipline, and what should take its place. One thing I think is how we conceive of our readers. The academic way of writing is to write down, to be what Gertrude Stein called the explainer, the village idiot explainer, simplifying, clarifying to the public, demonstrating. This is a kind of, if I may say so, a kind of snobism. It's a condescension to the reader. So my practice, and Bart also counseled me this early on. He said, don't write down, write out. And I think what that means is something like this. You have to imagine a reader who is your equal or even more intelligent than you. In my case, not so difficult. But somebody who doesn't know what you do. And so you have two questions with this. The reader I always have in mind is a female brain surgeon. This is as far from my world as you can imagine. And the question I always think of her asking me is, what you know interesting, and why is it important? Now, those are questions that are pretty hard to answer, particularly the question about interesting. All writers think that what they're engaged in must be engaging to someone else. But that's not the case. And one of the things we need to do as writers of essays is to find a way to make something interesting by surprise, displacement, either the use of the je or some other means by which to catch someone unawares. They didn't know they'd be interested in this subject. It's not self-evident. That's what an essayist does that makes the essayist different from a journalist who is taking something that everybody is talking about and talking about it again. That's what a journalist does. But an essay is something, good essay, I think, is something that takes the reader by surprise, both as to its interest and its importance. I would say that for me, as a writer, the challenge of writing essays is to find things, not that I am a master of, I'm not a master of very much, except foie gras, which I understand deeply, but to find things that are problematic for the writer as well. And that's a huge challenge. About the actual craft of writing, it means that rather than laying something out, this follows this, you are involved in a kind of exploration in the writing for something that you yourself haven't understood before. And one way to put this is that writing an essay is about problem finding rather than problem solving. And that's also what I think good science is, cutting-edge science. It's about finding something that you yourself are not the master of. And that is a way to begin to conduct a discussion with your reader, with a conversation with your reader. People have asked me whether I have a method as a writer. And actually I do. And it is a method that could be given a very fancy name, which is nonlinear narrative. It's what one of my critics said to me. I still don't understand what it means, but I'm sure it means something. To me, the work of writing an essay is rather like the work of assembling a molecule, of putting together particular experiences or particular ideas that are associated with each other in ways that are not intuitively obvious or deductively clear. For instance, to take a famous essay of John Stuart Mill, you turn a page in On Liberty, and from discussing the questions about the proper framing of constitutional guarantees, he's suddenly talking about the rights of women. Nothing has prepared you for this. It's a complete change of subject. It's illogical if it were a demonstration. But it's absolutely seizing. You want to know why. How are we suddenly talking about women? We've been talking about procedures in the law that have no gender, no basis in this before. And gradually, those two subjects come together. They're like a kind of charge where, in a molecular thing, they begin to bond. And to me, the process of making an essay is a process of finding more and more elements like that, which by surprise become closer and closer, more and more adjacent to each other and inseparable. So that's the method I've tried to use. It's a research on myself, why I should be interested in two subjects that seem very far apart. And I think it's a research for the reader as well. Why are these things joined? This is a non-linear aspect of it. And I think all good essays have that element of not being demonstrations, but a kind of journey in which gradually experiences accrete and stay together. And that is the art of the essay, if you like, or craft of the essay, that over the last 50 years I have tried to practice. I hope you will find that arousing in reading the book on cooperation. It has a very, I hope, provocative theme, which is that I oppose cooperation to solidarity. If I begin to explain this theme to you, we'll never have a drink. So I am hoping that you will read it at your leisure rather than have me give you a long disquisition on it. But it is why there is so much seemingly different material in the book if you read together, or ensemble. The notion of what I'm trying to do is put together a kind of complex molecule of experience. And I've tried to do that, sometimes succeeded, sometimes failed, in all of my books. So I can only say to you, once again, that I am particularly honored to get this prize because it honors in the effort for me that I have worked on all my life to make take an intellectual journey with my readers in the essay form. So thank you very much for this award, and argue with me. That's